Johannes Trithemius, born Johann Heidenberg, was a German Benedictine abbot and a polymath active in the German Renaissance as a lexicographer, chronicler, cryptographer and occultist. He had considerable influence on the development of early modern and modern occultism. His students included Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa and Paracelsus. Life. The byname Trithemius refers to his native town of Trittenheim on the Moselle River, at the time part of the Electorate of Trier. When Johannes was still an infant, his father Johann von Heidenberg died. His stepfather, whom his mother Elizabeth married 7 years later, was hostile to education, and thus Johannes could only learn in secrecy and with many difficulties. He learned Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. When he was 17 years old, he escaped from his home and wandered around looking for good teachers, traveling to Trier, Cologne, the Netherlands and Heidelberg. He studied at the University of Heidelberg, traveling from university to his hometown in 1482. He was surprised by a snowstorm and took refuge in the Benedictine Abbey of Sponheim near Bad Kreuznach. He decided to stay and was elected abbot in 1483, at the age of 21. He set out to transform the abbey from a neglected and undisciplined place into a center of learning. In his time, the abbey library increased from around 50 items to more than 2,000. He often served as featured speaker and chapter secretary at the Bursfelde congregation's annual chapter from 1492 to 1503, the annual meeting of reform-minded abbots. Trithemius also supervised the visitations of the congregation's abbeys. His work was distinguished by mastery of the Latin language and eloquent phrasing. Yet it was soon discovered that he inserted several fictional passages into his works. His work as a historian has been tainted ever since, the invented passages proved by several scholars. However, his efforts did not meet with praise, and his reputation as a magician did not further his acceptance. Increasing differences with the convent led to his resignation in 1506, when he decided to take up the offer of the Bishop of Würzburg, Lorenz von Bibra, to become the abbot of St. James's Abbey, the Schottenkloster in Würzburg. He remained there until the end of his life. Trithemius was buried in this abbey's church. A tombstone by the famous Tilman Riemann Schneider was erected in his honor. In 1825 the tombstone was moved to the Neumünster Church, next to the cathedral. It was damaged in the firebombing of 1945 and subsequently restored by the workshop of Theodor Spiegel. Among his pupils were Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa and Paracelsus. Steganographia. Trithemius' most famous work, Steganographia, was placed on the Index Librorum Prohibitorum in 1609 and removed in 1900. This book is in 3 volumes, and appears to be about magic, specifically, about using spirits to communicate over long distances. Since the publication of the decryption key to the first 2 volumes in 1606, they have been known to be actually concerned with cryptography and steganography. Until recently, the 3rd volume was widely still believed to be solely about magic, but the magical formulae have now been shown to be cover texts for yet more cryptographic content. However, mentions of the magical work within the 3rd book by such figures as Agrippa and John Dee still lend credence to the idea of a mystic magical foundation concerning the 3rd volume. Additionally, while Trithemius's steganographic methods can be established to be free of the need for angelic astrological mediation, still left intact as an underlying theological motive for their contrivance. The preface to the Bibliography equally establishes the everyday practicability of cryptography was conceived by Trithemius as a secular consequent of the ability of a soul specially empowered by God to reach, by magical means, from earth to heaven. Works. Exhortationis ad Monachos, 1486. De Institutione Vitae Sacerdotalis, 1486. De Regimina Claustralium, 1486. De Visitatione Monachorum, about 1490. Catalogus Illustrium Virorum Germania, 1491–1495, De Laude Scriptorum Manualium, 1492, Zum Lob der Schreiber, Freunde Main Frankische Kunstgeschichte e.V. Würzburg 1973. De Virus Illustribus Ordinais Sancti Benedicta, 1492. In Laudem a Commendatione Rupert Quondam Abatis Tuitionsus, 1492. De Origine, Progressia Laudibus Ordinais Fratrum Carmelitarum, 1492. Liber Penthicus seu Lugubris de Statue Ruina Ordinais Monastici, 1493. De Proprietate Monachorum, before 1494. De Vanitate Miseria Humani Vitae, before 1494. Liber de Scriptoribus Ecclesiasticis, 1494. De Laudibus Sanctissimi Matrisani, 1494. De Scriptoribus Ecclesiasticis, 1494. Chronicon Hersiense, 1495–1503. Chronicon Sponheimense, 1495–1509. Chronic des Klosters Sponheim, 1024–1509. Eigenverlag Kulvelten, Bad Kreuznach 1969. De Cura Pastorali, 1496. De Duodecim Exoderus Ober 70 I Regularis, 1496. De Triplici Regina Claustralium a Spirituali Exercitio Monachorum, 1497. Steganographia, 1499. Chronicon Successionis Ducum Bavariae Comitum Palatinorum, 1500–1506. Nepia Juice, 1507. De Septem Secundis id est intelligentes sive spiritibus orbis post diem moventibus, 1508. A History of the World based on astrology. Antipalus Maleficiorum, 1508. Polygraphia, 1508. Annal Hersienses, 1509–1514. The full title is Annal Hersiensis, Complectans Historiam Franciae Germania, Gesta Imperatorum, Regum, Principum, Episcoporum, Abbatum. A Illustrium Virorum, Latin for the Annals of Hersor, including the history of France and Germany, the exploits of the emperors, kings, princes, bishops, abbots, and illustrious men. Hersor was a monastery near Wittenberg, whose abbot commissioned the work in 1495, but it took Trithemius until 1514 to finish the two-volume, 1,400-page work. It was first printed in 1690. Some consider this work to be one of the first humanist history books. Compendium sive breviarium prima voluminis chronicarum sive annalium de origine regiume gentis Francorum, 1514. De origine gentis Francorum compendium, 1514. An abridged history of the Franks, Johannes Trithemius, AQ Verlag. Dudweiler 1987, ISBN 9783922444152-6. Liber Octoquaestionum, 1515. Compilations Marquard Freher, Opera Historica, Minerva, Frankfurt, Main, 1966. Johannes Busseus, Opera Pianae Spiritualia. Johannes Busseus, Parali Pomena Opusculorum.